You earn $4,200 a month. Your neighbor James earns $4,200 a month. You both drive used cars. You both pack lunch on Wednesdays. You both complain about the same gas prices, the same grocery bills, the same landlord who takes 2 weeks to fix anything. From the outside, your lives are running the same program, same inputs, same outputs, same Tuesday. James is going to retire at 47. You are not. Not because he earns more, not because he inherited something, not because he got lucky on a stock tip or married into money or found some shortcut that you missed. He didn't. He found something quieter than that, something that doesn't show up in his paycheck, doesn't live in his apartment, doesn't drive behind him on the way to work. You have passed it every single morning for 3 years without knowing it was there. This is the story of the gap, not the income gap, the architecture gap, the distance between two people earning the exact same number who end up in completely different places because of what they built underneath the number while nobody was watching. James moved in 2 doors down from you 4 years ago. Quiet guy, works in logistics, mid-level operation, the kind of job that pays real money, but nobody talks about at dinner party. He drives a 2017 Camry with a small dent above the rear wheel. Well, he hasn't bothered to fix. His apartment looks like yours. His grocery bags look like yours. He has one streaming service. He gets coffee from the machine in the office break room, not the place on the corner that charges $6.50 for something that requires 3 words to order. You have had exactly 1 conversation with James about money. It lasted 4 minutes and ended when his phone rang. You didn't think about it again for 8 months. Then, one afternoon in March, you ran into James in the parking lot. He was on his way back from the bank. Not an errand you'd think about mentioning, except he mentioned it casually, the way people mention weather. He said he'd just moved another transfer into a taxable brokerage account. You nodded like you understood exactly what that meant. You didn't? Not fully. You went upstairs and looked it up. You sat with what you found for a long time. James has been investing $840 a month for 6 years. Not in something complicated. Not in something that requires a financial advisor with a corner office and a firm handshake. In a total market index fund with an expense ratio of 0.03%. He automated the transfer the day after his first paycheck at this job and has not touched the logic of it since. He does not watch the market. He does not move in and out of position. He does not have a brokerage app on his home screen. The money leaves his account before he can see it and goes somewhere that compounds in the background the way a clock runs in a room you've left. You don't hear it. It doesn't stop. At $840 a month for 6 years at a historical average return of 7%, James has approximately $82,000 invested. By the time he is 47, if he continues at the same rate, that number becomes somewhere between $380,000 and $440,000 in the investment account alone. That is before whatever equity he has built in other places. That is before the rental property you found out about 3 weeks later from a mutual neighbor who mentioned it the same way you mention things you assume everyone already knows. The rental property is a 2-bedroom in a neighborhood 2 cities over. He bought it 5 years ago for $118,000. It rents for $1,100 a month. After the mortgage, insurance, taxes, and a small maintenance reserve, it nets him $340 a month. $340 that arrives whether he is awake or asleep, whether he goes to work or calls in sick, whether the market is up or down, whether the news is good or terrible. It just comes. Every month. Like a clock in a room he left a long time ago. You are not behind because you earn less. You earn exactly the same. You are behind because of what happened to the $840. Here is where the $840 went for you. You not moved all to once, a slightly better one bad decision. $290 more per month. Reasonable, individually defensible way problem, that financial erosion always happens. And you were going to start using it seriously. Your car needed tires, and you did, $480. Month 9. 3. your sister's birthday, not an extravagant one. You picked up most of the bill because you were the one who suggested the restaurant. A trip that cost $1,500 on a car contract ended to pay off, and you upgraded because the camera on the new one was genuinely better. You've been carrying for 14 months, so it's not really a luxury. 99% APR, and paying the minimum on because the budget is tight and you're tired and the balance has been there so long, it no longer feels urgent. None of those decisions were wrong exactly. The tires were necessary. Your sister matters to you. The apartment had mold. The trip was real. Each one examined alone is perfectly reasonable. But the $840 was never free in the first place. It was always going somewhere. The only question was whether you were directing it or whether it was finding its own way out. James directed his, not because he is more disciplined than you in some fundamental character sense, not because he grew up with better financial education or a father who explained compound interest over breakfast. He directed it because he made one decision 6 years ago on a Sunday night when the apartment was quiet, and he had no particular reason to do it except that the math was clear and nobody was watching, and he set up an automatic transfer and went to bed. One decision, automated, invisible, compounding in a room he walked out of and never looked back into. You have made 1,000 reasonable decisions since then. James made one boring one. This is what people get wrong about the wealth gap between neighbors, between coworkers, between people who graduated the same year from the same kind of school and ended up on the same street earning the same paycheck. They assume it's about income. They assume the person who ends up ahead found a better job, caught a better break, had a better starting position. Sometimes that's true. But more often, far more often than the story we tell ourselves allows for, the gap is architectural. It is not what they earned. It is what they built underneath what they earned, before the earning had a chance to become something else. At $840 a month, automated for 20 years, at 7% average annual return, you are looking at approximately $520,000. Not a fortune, not a number that gets anyone on a podcast, but $520,000 invested, drawing down at 4% annually, generates $20,800 a year. That is not retirement money by itself, but combine it with a rental property that nets $400 a month, an employer match you actually captured, a Roth IRA you maxed for 10 of those 20 years, and suddenly the number at the end is not $520,000. It is something larger, and more importantly, it is something that runs. It generates income the way a business generates income, not because you show up, but because the architecture was built correctly and left alone long enough to do what architecture does. James is not smarter than you. He is not more talented, more disciplined, more naturally gifted at anything. He is more patient with invisible things. He learned earlier than most people do that the most powerful financial moves are the ones that produce no visible result for the longest time. The investment account at month 3 looks exactly like the investment account at month 1. The rental property on the day you close looks like a liability, not an asset. The automated transfer on Thursday looks like less money in your checking account. Nothing about the architecture announces itself. Nothing about it earns you admiration at a dinner table or approval from someone in a parking lot. It is profoundly, almost aggressively uninteresting. If you found this useful, subscribe. Not because you'll miss something dramatic, because the next video is going to be the same thing. One quiet financial truth, explained slowly until it lands. That is the only thing this channel does. If that is what you are looking for, the button is below and it is free. One more thing. In the comments, tell me this. What is the one financial decision you made or didn't make between 22 and 30 that you think about the most now? Not to torture yourself, because the comments on these videos are where the real education happens. Someone reading your answer 6 months from now might make a different decision because of what you write today. That is not nothing.